Pin bowling. 10-pin bowling.
10-pin bowling.
Tense.
Tense.
Marion spoke, eager to break the tense silence.
Is anything wrong? You look a little tense.
Massage is great if your neck and back are tense.
She tried to relax her tense muscles.
Relax and try not to tense up so much.
Every time the phone rang, she tensed.
Tensed up.
Tensed up.
Brian got so tensed up he could hardly speak.
Tensile.
Tensile.
Tensile rubber.
Tensile strength.
Tensile strength.
Tension.
Tension.
The tension was becoming unbearable and I wanted to scream.
Exercise is the ideal way to relieve tension after a hard day.
In those days, there was a great deal of racial tension on campus.
The obvious tension between Warren and Anne made everyone else uncomfortable.
In business, there's always a tension between the needs of customers and shareholders.
Tension in the neck muscles can cause headaches.
Muscle tension can be a sign of stress.
This wire will take £50 tension. There was a lot of tension on the wire before it snapped.
Tent.
Tent.
We looked for a flat spot where we could pitch our tent.
Tentacle.
Tentacle.
The company's tentacles spread from car manufacturing to railways.
Tentative.
Tentative.
I passed on my tentative conclusions to the police. The government is taking tentative steps towards tackling the country's economic problems.
A tentative smile.
Albie knocked tentatively and entered.
Tent City.
Tent City.
Tenterhooks.
Tenterhooks.
She had been on tenterhooks all night, expecting Joe to return at any moment.
10th. 10th.
In the 10th century.
Her 10th birthday.
I'm planning to leave on the 10th.
Tenuous.
Tenuous.
For now, the band's travel plans are tenuous.
The United Peace Alliance had only a tenuous connection with the organized labor movement.
The link between her family and the Kings is rather tenuous.
Tenure.
Tenure.
It's becoming increasingly difficult to acquire academic tenure.
The company has doubled in value during his tenure.
A tenured professor.
A tenured position.
Teepee.
Teepee.
Tepid.
Tepid.
A tepid response from the audience.
Tepid coffee.
Tequila.
Tequila.
Terror.
Terror.
Terabyte.
Terabyte.
Teraflop. Teraflop.
Tercentenary.
Tercentenary.
Term.
Term.
Femininity is still defined in terms of beauty.
It's a mistake to think of Florida only in terms of its tourist attractions.
It's too early to start talking in terms of casualties. Did the experiment find any differences in terms of what children learned?
We explain in simple terms what the treatment involves.
It would be wrong to describe society purely in economic terms.
The war, although successful in military terms, left the economy in ruins.
What do these statistics mean in human terms?
In our terms, the scheme has not been a success.
Rail fares have fallen 17% in real terms. Rail fares have fallen 17% in real terms.
Students have less money in relative terms, but spend more on books.
Multimedia is the term for any technique combining sounds and images.
Journalists were told, in no uncertain terms, that they were not welcome.
The mayor was coming to the end of his term in office.
The maximum term of imprisonment.
The lease runs for a term of 99 years.
The men each received a 30-year prison term.
The exams are at the end of the summer term. Teachers often feel overworked in term time.
That all-important first day of term.
The cost of living will go up in the short term.
In the long term, alcohol causes high blood pressure. The agreement reaches its term next year. A child born 2 months before full term.
We can prolong life beyond its natural term.
George and Elizabeth have come to terms with the fact that they will never have children.
Counselling helped her come to terms with her grief.
Under the terms of the agreement, the debt would be repaid over 20 years.
Your terms and conditions of employment.
Delivery is within the terms of this contract.
Small businesses have to compete on equal terms with large organizations.
Men and women should be able to work on level terms. He wanted our relationship to be only on his terms.
Some insurance companies offer very reasonable terms.
This allowed tenant farmers to buy land on easy terms.
By now, Usha and I were on familiar terms.
He is barely on speaking terms with his father. We were soon on first-name terms.
The committee's terms of reference.
This condition is sometimes termed RSI, or repetitive strain injury.
These developments are loosely termed advanced manufacturing techniques.
Roosevelt termed himself and his policies liberal.
Terminal.
The airport's passenger terminal.
Terminal cancer.
The once great industry is now in terminal decline.
Terminally ill patients.
Terminate.
Terminate.
The court ruled that the contract must be terminated.
A woman's decision on whether or not to terminate the pregnancy.
The train from Paris terminates at St. Pancras International.
Termination.
You may face a reduction or termination of benefits.
Terminator gene.
Terminator gene.
Terminator seed. Terminator seed.
Terminology.
Terminology.
Computer terminology.
Terminus.
Terminus.
Termite.
Termite.
Term limit.
Term limit.
Termly.
Termly.
Students can pay fees in termly instalments.
Term paper.
Term paper.
Term time.
Term time.
Turn.
Turn.
Terrace.
Terrace.
Football terracing.
Terraced.
Terraced.
Terraced rice fields.
Terraced house.
Terraced house.
Terracotta.
Terracotta.
A terracotta pot.
Terra firma.
Terra firma.
We were glad to be back on terra firma.
Terraform.
Terraform. Would it be possible to terraform Mars? Terrain.
Terrain.
Rocky terrain.
Terrapin.
Terrapin.
Terrarium.
Terrarium.
Terrestrial.
Terrestrial.
Terrible.
Terrible.
Their son had been injured in a terrible accident.
We're worried that something terrible might have happened to Greg.
A terrible storm. The hotel was absolutely terrible.
I'd better write this down. I have a terrible memory.
There was a terrible noise, and the roof caved in.
She wept when she heard the terrible news.
You're making a terrible mistake.
Terribly.
Terribly.
I'm terribly sorry to have kept you waiting.
The coach was not terribly worried about his team's poor performance.
The little boy missed his mother terribly.
Terrier.
Terrier.
Terrific.
Terrific.
That's a terrific idea. The actress who played the lawyer was terrific.
A terrific bang.
He drank a terrific amount of beer.
Terrifically.
Terrifically.
She had been so terrifically busy that she barely had time to sleep.
Terrified.
Terrified.
A terrified little girl. Sid is terrified of heights.
She was terrified of being caught.
We were terrified that the bridge would collapse.
He was terrified at the thought of being stranded in the woods.
He was terrified to stay home alone.
Terrify.
Terrify.
Her husband's violence terrified her.
Terrifying.
Terrifying.
He told her of his terrifying experience.
Terrifying screams.
It was absolutely terrifying.
Terrene.
Terrene.
Territorial.
Territorial.
A territorial dispute.
Territorial claims.
Territorial army.
Territorial army.
Territorial waters.
Territorial waters.
Territory.
Territory.
Hong Kong became Chinese territory in 1997.
The plane was flying over enemy territory.
An expedition through previously unexplored territory. A tiger has a large territory to defend.
A dog uses urine to mark its territory.
The company is moving into unfamiliar territory with this new software.
Actor Patrick Bergin returns to more familiar territory to play a menacing killer.
A sales territory.
I'm a cop. Getting shot at goes with the territory.
The U.S. territory of Guam.
Terror.
Terror.
People fled in terror as fire tore through the building.
Shots rang out, and I screamed in terror.
We lived in terror of our father when he was drinking. There was a look of sheer terror on his face. The sound of enemy planes struck terror into our hearts.
The terrors of war.
Death holds no terrors for me.
The resistance movement started a campaign of terror.
The Red Army faction tried to undermine the state by terror tactics.
Pol Pot's reign of terror in Cambodia.
That Johnson kid's a real little terror.
Terrorism.
Terrorism.
The government is doing everything possible to combat terrorism.
A despicable act of terrorism.
Their involvement in international terrorism.
Terrorist.
Terrorist.
We refuse to talk to terrorists.
20 people were killed in the latest terrorist attack.
A terrorist bomb that left 168 people dead.
Terrorize.
Terrorize.
Many people have been terrorized into leaving.
Gangs who terrorize the neighborhood.
Terrycloth.
Terrycloth.
Terse.
Terse.
Derek's terse reply ended the conversation.
Continue, he said tersely.
Tertiary.
Tertiary.
Tertiary education.
Tertiary education.
Terylene.
Terylene.
Tessel.
Tessel.
Tesol.
Tessol.
Tessellated.
Tessellated.
Test.
Test.
We have a test on irregular verbs tomorrow. Did you get a good mark in the test?
The doctor said I needed to have a blood test.
An eye test. A hearing test.
I'm still waiting for my test results from the hospital.
They don't know what's wrong with her yet. They're doing tests.
The tests were negative, and the doctor said that she was in perfect health.
Test for HIV.
A drugs test.
The results of the DNA test proved that Simmons was the rapist.
A pregnancy test.
Nuclear weapons tests.
A test for chemicals in the water.
Laboratory tests show that the new drug is very effective.
We went to the test site in Nevada. Chess player Nigel Short faces Anatoly Karpov in the toughest test of his career so far.
The problems she faced were a real test of character.
Living together will soon put their relationship to the test.
Paul soon found himself in an emergency situation that put all his training to the test.
I must have my eyes tested.
They tested her for diabetes.
Athletes who test positive for steroids are immediately banned.
The water should be tested for lead. This task is designed to test your reading skills. We're being tested on grammar tomorrow.
The Ferrari team wanted to test their new car out on the racetrack.
None of this range of cosmetics has been tested on animals.
A game that will test the contestants' strength and skill.
The next 6 months will test your powers of leadership.
I felt that she was testing me, leaving all that cash lying around.
Dr. Lee set up a series of experiments to test out this hypothesis.
The theory was then tested against the results of the study.
The government is clearly testing the water to gauge the country's reactions to their proposals.
Testable.
Testable.
I don't think this theory is testable.
Testament.
Testament.
The aircraft safety record is a testament to its designer's skill.
Test ban.
Test ban.
The test ban treaty.
Test card.
Test card.
Test case.
Test case.
Test certificate.
Test certificate.
Test drive.
Test drive.
Tester.
Tester.
Testes. Testes.
Testicle.
Testicle.
Testify.
Testify.
Mr. Maltho has agreed to testify at the trial.
Later, the witness who had testified against Smuawad withdrew his allegation.
The empty shops in the high street testify to the depth of the recession.
The full ashtrays testify that smoking hasn't been stubbed out.
Can you testify that you saw the defendant at the scene of the crime?
Testimonial.
Testimonial.
A testimonial dinner in honor of Senator Frank Flint.
Testimony.
Testimony.
Barker's testimony is crucial to the prosecution's case.
In his testimony, he denied that the company had ignored safety procedures.
These results are a testimony to the coach's skill and hard work.
Testing.
Testing.
It's been a testing time.
Testing ground.
Testing ground.
Eastern Europe has become a testing ground for high-speed privatization.
Testis.
Testis.
Testicle.
Testis.
Test match.
Test match.
Testosterone.
Testosterone.
Test pilot.
Test pilot.
Test run.
Test run.
Test tube.
Test tube.
Test tube baby.
Test tube baby.
Testy.
Testy.
Testy remarks.
It had been a long day and Sarah was getting a little testy.
Tetanus.
Tetanus.
Tete-a-tete.
Tete-a-tete.
Friends are having a cosy tete-a-tete.
Tether.
Tether.
Tetra. Tetra.
A tetrahedron. Tetrachydecahedron.
Teutonic.
Teutonic.
Teutonic efficiency. Teutonic mythology.
Tex-Mex.
Tex-Mex.
A Tex-Mex restaurant.
Text.
Text.
One disk can store the equivalent of 500 pages of text.
There should not be too much text in children's books.
Some of the original text has survived. Literary texts, like all other works of art, have a historical context.
Hamlet is a set text this year.
A chemistry text. Only the Times printed the full text of the president's speech. He sent me a text saying he would be late.
Textbook.
Textbook.
A biology textbook.
The advertising campaign was a textbook example of how to sell a product. Textile.
Textile.
Their main exports are textiles, especially silk and cotton.
Textile design and technology. A textile mill.
Text message.
Text message.
She's always text messaging her friends.
Text speak.
Text speak.
NP is text speak for no problem.
Textual.
Textual.
A detailed textual analysis of the Bible. Texture.
Texture.
The smooth texture of silk. A designer who experiments with different colors and textures.
This soup has a lovely creamy texture.
The rich texture of Shakespeare's English.
Textured.
Textured.
Textured wallpaper.
Smooth textured skin.
A richly textured novel.
Textured vegetable protein.
Textured vegetable protein.
The 17th of June.
A fifth of the total.
Thalidomide.
Thalidomide.
Thallium.
Thallium.
Van.
Van.
Natalie was prettier than her sister.
You need that money more than I do. There were more people there than I expected.
If it costs more than $60, I won't buy it.
She had woken even earlier than usual.
Divorce is more common than it was a generation ago.
We never go to church, other than for funerals and weddings.
We know he lived in Fleet Road, but other than that, we don't know much about him.
I'd rather drive than go by train.
She said she'd rather die than live in the city. No sooner had I got into the house than the phone rang.
Hardly had they reached Edinburgh than they were ordered to return to London.
Thane.
Thane.
Thank.
Thank.
I haven't had a chance to thank him yet.
Did you thank Uncle Ron for the present?
Madeline thanked everyone for coming. Thank God that's over. I've never been so nervous in my life. Only 10 miles to go. Thank heavens for that. You should thank your lucky stars I got here when I did.
She has only herself to thank if she doesn't have any friends.
You'll thank me for this one day, Laura. I know you're just trying to help, but he won't thank you for telling him how to do it. I'll thank you to mind your own business. I have Phil to thank for getting me my first job. And who do I have to thank for that mess on my desk?
Thankful.
Thankful.
I'll be thankful for a good night's sleep after the week I've had. She was thankful that Chantal was there.
I was thankful to make any sort of progress at all.
Thankfully.
Thankfully.
Thankfully, I managed to pay off all my debts before we got married.
We came in and collapsed thankfully onto our beds.
Thankless.
Thankless.
Cooking every day is a thankless task.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Pass the salt, please. Thanks.
Thanks a lot for the drink. Thanks very much for your help.
Many thanks for the lovely flowers.
I'd love to go to the party. Thanks for asking me.
Do you want another cup of coffee? Oh, thanks.
Hi, Bill. How are you? Fine, thanks.
How about some cake? Oh, no thanks. I'm on a diet.
Joe got up and left, without a word of thanks.
My thanks to all of you for your help.
We've reached our goal of $50,000 thanks to the generosity of the public.
Some ski resorts opened early thanks to a late October snowstorm. It was no thanks to you that we managed to win the game.
Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This present's a thank you for helping me last week.
I just want to say a big thank you to everyone who supported us.
That.
You never cared about me. That's not true.
I wish you wouldn't say things like that.
What did you do with those sandwiches?
Victoria Street, that's where my sister lives. Do you remember that nice Mr. Hoskins who came to dinner?
I've got that pain in my back again.
He killed a man once, and that's why he had to leave Ireland.
We've been cheated, she said. Those were her exact words.
I have to go, she said, and with that she hung up the phone.
There are lots of things that I need to buy before the trip.
The people that live next door.
They've got a machine that prints names on badges. The greatest boxer that ever lived.
Who was it that said the law's an ass?
The day that my father died, I was on holiday in Greece.
In my opinion, the finest wines are those from France.
His own experience was different from that of his friends. There are those who disapprove of all forms of gambling.
Those who saw the performance thought it memorable.
You should be able to answer the question in a single sentence, and a short one at that.
One solution would be to change the shape of the screen. that is, to make it wider.
Languages are taught by the direct method, that is to say, without using the student's own language.
I loved him. That is, I thought I did.
Is that my pen you've got there?
That's Eileen's house across the road.
Look at those men in that car. What on earth are they doing?
Our tomatoes never get as big as that.
I don't think I was fairly treated, but then that's life, isn't it?
We go out for a romantic meal and all he wants to do is talk about football. That's men for you.
That's it then. There's nothing more we can do. Slowly, slowly. Yeah, that's it.
That's it. I'm leaving. I refuse to go, and that's that.
There's no money left, so that's that. Hello, is that Joan Murphy?
I knew he was interested in computers and all that.
If she said that she'd come, she'll come. I can't believe that he's only 17.
Are you sure that they live in Park Lane?
Allegations that he is guilty of war crimes.
The fact that he is your brother-in-law should not affect your decision.
He might have left the money for the simple reason that he didn't know it was there.
I was so tired that I fell asleep.
The school was so badly damaged that it had to be pulled down.
We had been away for such a long time that I had forgotten her name. It's odd that I haven't heard of you.
That anyone should want to kill her was unthinkable.
The problem is that no one knows what will happen.
Give us strength that we may stand against them.
Oh, that she were alive to see this.
It was quite a large fish, about that long.
He missed hitting the car in front by that much.
I'm sorry, I hadn't realized the situation was that bad.
No one expected it to cost that much. The advanced exam is more difficult, but not many students progress that far.
Will's not that tall, considering he's 16.
The film wasn't all that good.
I was that embarrassed I didn't know what to say.